Welcome to the Moriah Nightly News on this Friday evening, April 10th, in the year of our Lord, 2026. The Friday broadcast serves largely as a recap of the week's news, with many of our sources, if you will, providing those recaps. We are indebted here as a one-man operation to sources around the region. For example, the Times of Thai comes out on Friday, which allows us to provide a more detailed overview of some of the things happening around the region, and providing us with a solid grounding in a biblical worldview for the news is a Messianic Jewish ministry called from Lion and Lamb Ministries called Messianic World Update. That is a news broadcast, and that allows us to stay biblically grounded in what's going on. And we have corroborated some of those sources as well with the Associated Press and others to give more of a solid journalistic foundation for what you see here on these broadcasts, rather than just my opinion, although certainly I can throw in some of that analysis as well, given what I can see or sense by hopefully by God's Spirit and not just my own intellect, although certainly I pray that He can use that in the course of the broadcast as we go along. So the top stories of the week, of course, were the wars in both Iran and Israel. Israel taking it to Hezbollah, still in Lebanon, with Operation Roaring Lion, Operation Epic Fury. At the beginning of the week, a ceasefire had been reached. You had seen on our broadcasts at that time, and that is still tentatively ongoing. Right now, today, a U.S. delegation had arrived in Pakistan for those agreements or talks to begin taking place there. Iran has still choked off the Strait of Hormuz. It is still largely closed, and that is going to be, of course, a large point of contention in these meetings. There is still at the ready the military capability to be able to take that, control it, and I have no doubt that we could do that. Certainly, I believe with ease, given what we have seen so far with the U.S. flexing its muscle here. So those talks are ongoing, or are beginning. Israel has agreed to meet in Washington, D.C. next week. The beginning of next week, it looks like Tuesday is when that's going to begin, for peace talks with Lebanon, or negotiations with Lebanon. I would rather use the word negotiation with Lebanon regarding Hezbollah. It looks like more of how to get rid of the problem. Because of the fact that Israeli news outlets were saying that, we corroborated this with Messianic World Update, saying that the reason for the large amount of Israeli bombardment in Lebanon this week, and most of the legacy media was going crazy, was because of the fact that Israeli intelligence caught wind of an attempted coup by Hezbollah to overthrow the government in Lebanon, and with that being in such close proximity to Israel, they did not want that. They would not allow that, and so they are going to deal with the problem. And this, of course, is largely when you're when you have an aggressor on your border, what else are you supposed to do? So that's the reason for that, and that's what it looks like to me there. Also in the news this week with the war in Iran was a downed aircraft in Iran, which again sent the media into a panic because of the fact that, of course, it was reported largely by the Pentagon and others that the U.S. had air superiority, which they do, but that does not mean that if an aircraft flies low enough that cannot be caught by some of those weapon systems that still remain. And it appeared that, or that the well, basically we went in, we got the our guys behind. He was not a pilot. It looked like it was just a weapon systems operator on that plane. The media was saying pilot, but I don't think he was a pilot. In any case, we did get him, and apparently the media made it worse because of the fact that they reported this kind of early, or leaked it and the Iranians caught wind of it, and so it kind of put military personnel at risk. No surprise that the media would do something sleazy like that. So there was that, and this operation was incredible. Hearing it described, because of the fact that we went in there and established a base with rescue aircraft and whatnot, and 1,600 Iranians were reported to have been killed in this operation with no U.S. casualties. There were minor injuries. No one was killed in action on the American side, which almost seems miraculous in what's been going on there. So that's what took place there with that downed aircraft. Now, one of the things that caught my attention this evening was a video from Time magazine, or Time, they posted on their YouTube feed, and it was likely just a general feed from the Vatican news outlet, from the Pope. And Pope Leo is incredibly at odds with the president and the U.S. leadership on this conflict. And let me just report what was said by Pope Leo on this, and as this should concern any Catholic to me. I would say any Christian, but because what the Pope says matters for all of us, but for any Catholic especially, because he's saying that it's not going to a war that would not resolve anything. It's an unjust war. That we should reject war always. Calling for solutions in a peaceful way, peace not violence, and really just seems kind of totally off base with what is Catholic teaching. Last week, and during Holy Week, there was this statement that was totally ludicrous about it being unbiblical and being totally off base with anything to do with biblical history. And yet, so I pulled out, I can't believe I'm going to do this on a newscast, but I pulled out the Catechism of the Catholic Church because a few years ago I had done a podcast on just war theory. So this is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and this is what it says, and you can look it up. And this is items 2308 and 2309. If you want to go, so there. This is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. All citizens and all governments are obliged to work for the avoidance of war. However, as long as the danger of war persists and there is no international authority with the necessary competence and power, governments cannot be denied the right of lawful self-defense once all peace efforts have failed. So, self-defense. So 2309 goes on to say the strict conditions for legitimate defense by military force require rigorous consideration. The gravity of such decisions makes it subject to rigorous conditions of moral legitimacy, and it goes on to list what those conditions are. The damage inflicted by the aggressor on the nation or community of nations must be lasting, grave, and certain. And certainly, if Iran is getting a nuclear weapon, everyone, including the Vatican, should be concerned, considering that those weapons could reach Italy and Rome. And so there's that. So, grave, lasting, and certain. All other means of putting an end to it must have been shown to be impractical or ineffective, so diplomacy has failed, which we tried that. There must be serious prospects of success, and I would say there is. The use of arms must not produce evils and disorders graver than the evil to be eliminated. The power of modern means of destruction weighs very heavily in evaluating this condition. These are the traditional elements enumerated in what is called the just war doctrine. So, I really don't understand how the Pope gets off saying these things when his own tradition and church has a long history of just war theory. That goes all the way back to St. Augustine and the early church fathers, to the foundations of the Catholic Church, of Christianity. So I don't understand where this comes from. Probably the same line of thought that got rid of the death penalty in the Catholic Church, which is a mistake because it's not biblical and not in line with Catholic tradition. And I will hold to that. It's not an ex cathedra position. It's not a from the chair statement, and I will hold that can be rebuked and should be rebuked. And I was glad to see that Franklin Graham criticized that, and I would hope that more within the church will do the same. Within the Catholic Church will do the same, because it's ridiculous. It's nonsensical, and no pontiff should be doing that. Nobody should, in their right mind, should be doing that. And so that's where we're going on that front. Will these negotiations pan out? I would like to see that, because there are innocent people in the crosshairs. I will at least side the Pope on that. Anytime war breaks out, whether that's innocent Israeli people, and certainly the Iranians, who I have probably not given enough credit to, which I know I have alluded to, but is the Iranian resistance, because there's a movement inside Iran and inside the borders of that country, and to bring about change of leadership. And right now, that seems to be the tension in Iran between civilian leadership and the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and the military who's firing off these weapons. And what it seems to be is that delegation that's meeting with the vice president is probably more leaning towards the civilian end. So I'm not as optimistic as the president and others that it will pan out the way they're hoping. So that might mean taking the Strait of Hormuz in the future. It might mean pulling out on an off-ramp. I cannot say at this point how that's going to go. We'll just have to wait and see. Only God knows how it's going to pan out. I would again hope that either one of those works out for the sake of the midterms. Because the midterms are on the horizon. As I turn over to the state focus, the state, because I covered this earlier in the week, and the Press Republican put out an article later this week describing a little bit more clearly the candidates and their backgrounds. And I think that's important. On the Democratic side, you had Stuart Moriah, who was that Lake Placid area restaurant owner. You had Blake, I can't pronounce these last names, Genebian, looked a lot younger, probably in the millennial crowd, who was an Ogdensburg area farmer, getting backing there. On that side of the political spectrum, Dylan Hewitt was still listed in the Working Families Party, so wasn't quite clear to me by that article what will happen to him. If he will probably get a little bit of votes, but he didn't seem to have the one article we had reported on a week or so ago. He didn't have the backing from the Democratic establishment, especially in the North Country, to gain footing, because he was way as far left as Karl Marx, probably. So, on the Republican side, we have Anthony Constantino, who was an Amsterdam businessman. There was a question in that article about how he got the signatures for his petition. There's an ethical question there. He was in Mineville recently, as we reported, but I don't know what will become of that, so we'll have to follow up on that. And Robert Smullen was the other Republican, and he, I believe, looks like he is a state assemblyman already. And right now, it appears that Smullen is the front runner, but that could obviously change, as we've seen in the political process in recent years. It was interesting to me that the neighboring 24th Congressional District, which is a little bit to our west in the Watertown area, covers that part of upstate New York. Only the Democrats are up for grabs in the primaries. And what caught my attention was that some of those candidates running in the Democratic Party, one of them, it mentioned, was a former government employee that was laid off during the Doge cuts last year. That, to me, is interesting for the political process in terms of resentment or animosity there towards Trump. Of course, everything is Trump's fault. So that will be interesting to watch as we move ahead. Of course, it caught my attention in the state, kind of a cross between the state and regional focus, that Plattsburgh is hosting a considerable amount of Holocaust awareness programs through SUNY Plattsburgh in the coming weeks and months or so. A lot of Holocaust awareness events. They have a tour bus, it appears, that will be going around to area schools and things like that. There's a screening of a film called Return to Auschwitz, which covers a local SUNY professor. He's a retired professor. I'm not sure if he's still living, but he's a Holocaust survivor who taught for many years at SUNY Plattsburgh. And I mentioned this, of course there's an Anne Frank story there, because of the rise in anti-Semitism that has happened. We mentioned that Tucker Carlson interview with Mike Huckabee before we launched as a company. I mention that again because I keep seeing it pop up on Facebook, or seeing Tucker Carlson on Facebook, because he's a loser and an anti-Semite, and don't pay any attention to it because of the fact that anyone who goes against Israel doesn't make out well in the end. Whether that's ancient Israel or modern Israel, it doesn't end well. You can look at any modern British Prime Minister as an example of that. Even Winston Churchill went against Israel and lost in the end. And I would guarantee you that there are many who will pay the price for that in our time. Looking to the local spotlight, and there was a considerable amount of news to cover on that front. In the town of Moriah, the only piece of news that was newsworthy, as you might say, was that Brian Cross, of course, we had reported on that briefly, his induction into the State Hall of Fame. There was a date published for that from the Sun, Time to Tie, because that's the proper name for it, for those of us that grew up here. He will be inducted into the State Hall of Fame. I believe that was April 19th. My notes are all over the place here. April 19th. Yep, here it is. April 19th. And yeah. Can't even read my own writing. Is that April 19th? Yes, that is a 9 there. April 19th at the Glens Falls Civic Center. A great article there that the Sun put out. He did not know that he got the email and did not, on his way back from Florida, and had no idea what it was, and was kind of shocked to get it. And I guess Kelly picked that up for him, and I guess she was a good secretary. So that's a good thing that she was there to take that. So congratulations to them on that accomplishment there. He not only was a basketball coach, but many of us had him in gym class growing up as well. So congratulations to them, that family. And I know I went to school with his kids. I know that they are all doing well in their careers as well. So many congratulations to them. Moving to the area news in Ticonderoga, because we're getting some attention with some viewers down in Ty. A lot is going on in Ticonderoga. The high school, and thankfully most of it's lighthearted. In the high school, they recently had a career day. It was the second annual career day hosted by the Ticonderoga Area Chamber of Commerce. And that featured keynote speaker, what's her name? Renee. That's not her. Her name's not Renee. Mars Dever. I can't even read my own writing. Anyway, they had a keynote speaker about area businesses, talking about the importance of setting goals, priorities, things like that. And it was well received by students, and interestingly, there was a lot of options listed there for their careers, things like that, beyond what you might think. Manufacturing, of course, with the mill being in town here, but a lot of healthcare and other opportunities that we probably would not be aware of, and hopefully that could expand to other area schools for our kids as well. The big issue on the front page this week was the water meters coming to Ticonderoga, which I would be willing to guess, now I have not heard local reactions on that beyond the article, that is a hot button issue, because when the town of Moriah tried that about 20 years ago now, it was shot down flat by public protest on that. The only thing that to me was, and this maybe is my wheelhouse to say, because being a Moriah person, was the way it was phrased from the article, saying that the state wanted Ticonderoga to do this. This was a quote from Town Supervisor Jim O'Brien, claiming that they were 10 years behind. And to me, anytime the state sticks its nose in, that cannot be good, because it's New York State, and I don't think I need to say anything more on that, because we all know how New York State is, and the wonderful, wonderful governor. So, we'll see how that pans out. There are 2 information sessions on that issue on April 16th at the Community Building Auditorium. 2 of those, one from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and the second in the evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you are a town of Ticonderoga resident and would like your voice heard, then please go to those. Get your voice out there. Get involved. If you want to see change, you have to get involved in the process. Now, there was, of course, and now the other thing to our north, was that Westport announced the date for the 10th annual Adirondack Harvest Dinner on September 19th. And there'll be more information on that, but that looks like a wonderful community event from the pictures posted from previous years. So we will, maybe we could be there to cover the event. And of course, that would be a shout out to my cousin Denny. He's I believe, the president of the fair board out there. So we'll have to follow up on that. Could easily follow up on that. And of course, a lighthearted story in Ticonderoga was, and it was a front page story, in the Times Tie, was the police department's canine Raven, and that's the name of the dog. She is a Dutch Shepherd, and so I was very intrigued about, because you always hear of German Shepherds in that field, or that the line of duty, as they say. And she is a very loyal, loving companion to Officer Scott Cook and his family. With them 24/7, loyal to the kids, loyal to the family, but does her job, and helped discover just over $73,000 in narcotics last year. That was her rookie year on the force. She was brought to the force around Christmas of 2023, and then with all the training and all of that stuff, came into active duty, I guess you might say, last year in March. And so that is pretty, she earned her keep there, as they say. But that was a very touching story to read that, and a good thing for stomping out the local drug problem. And another story from Crown Point was some students got to go down to Broadway for a local play, and they saw The Cursed Child on Broadway, which is a very popular Broadway play at the moment. And I applaud that, because it's a very positive, rewarding experience of some higher culture, and a good thing to be exposed to for the kids. I do know that there are some students from TIE that are in Europe right now. I believe some of them are over in Greece, or they were. So all of that is good. And I know Moriah Central also has the trip to Europe that they do now, which they did not do when I was a student there and graduated in 2014. So they always pull out the good stuff after I leave. And lastly, I will turn over to the church news. There were reports, and followed briefly, as I did not get a chance to follow too far, because my schedule does not allow fully at this point. Reports with Easter being this past week, of New York City revival in Times Square, with open-air preaching going on there, and some cases of supernatural manifestations, and some of them were basically demons being cast out, which is always a good thing. And one of the reports that, of course, is very intriguing to us is the fact that Generation Z, Gen Z as they call them, the generation just behind me, yes, I'm not that old, they are going Catholic in large numbers. Particularly the young men are going Catholic. And some of the reports I've seen are questions of what to do given the shortage of priests and the influx of people. Now, personally, I think that's a good thing either way, because I'm sure that some of them might become priests, and it will work itself out. But it is some positive news, and maybe something the Protestants will have to figure out and reckon with. Now, that's not a criticism, just a point of news, because unity in the body of Christ is important, and definitely between Catholics and Protestants there should be more unity. And on the note of unity, church services around the area. This weekend is Divine Mercy Sunday, the second Sunday of Easter, and so that is this weekend. The church services that I have announced primarily have focused on the Methodist Church in Moriah and St. Patrick's. Those are, of course, at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Respectively. The Lake Champlain Bible Fellowship is still open, and they have a service at 10:30 a.m. And I'm not sure if it's still Rick Lewis there or not, and he does more of a reformed type service, probably Reformed Baptist type thing. And then I know they had some issues with scandals and whatnot a few years ago, so I don't know what became of that church in the years since the youth group there that I got saved at. But that would be at 10:30 a.m. And then looking ahead to looking at the other churches in the region, or a few of them, it was impossible to really jot down all of the times for those services, which is maybe a good sign for options in the area. Ticonderoga Assemblies of God at 10:30 a.m. with Pastor Race. And I can attest, he's a good pastor. I have been there for a few months, a good pastor there. Lakeside Regional at 10 a.m. out in Hague. And they have a fairly new pastor in Skip Holtz, after Pastor Skip Tremblay went to be with the Lord. Cornerstone Alliance at 10:30 a.m. with Pastor Tom Wright, a good solid man of God there in the pulpit. So you don't want to miss that. Very much Methodist with a modern flair, in my opinion. Again, that's a good opinion, a good positive review there for them. They have a good positive children's church there. So if you're looking for something to plug kids into, a good option there. Church of the Cross and the Episcopal Church here in Ticonderoga, that is at 9 a.m. And I know that they have fallen on some hard times with an older congregation and dwindling numbers. But if you want a high church liturgy, and that's the place. That is one place to get it. St. Mary's, of course. I did not write down St. Mary's, but they are in Ticonderoga, and they are at 9 a.m. I happen to know that because I've looked at them before. They are at 9 a.m. The First Baptist Church in Ty is at 10:45 a.m. over right on Champlain Avenue, or Lake George Avenue. Excuse me, not Champlain. That's Lake George Avenue over there. And of course, going to the north, Westport Bible Church in Westport at 9 a.m. with Pastor Carr. That is a fantastic church there as well, with a lot of great men. If you are a man looking for a church, I would send you there, because there are some solid men of God in that church who lead their families well, and there is a nice positive plug for them. So that is the Moriah Nightly News for this April 10th, 2026. If you would like to support us on Patreon or PayPal, you can do that. And be sure to like or subscribe on YouTube or Facebook, if nothing else, because that is the best thing to do to support us, because those numbers help us more than anything else. Those numbers are helping us to grow, to push the algorithm, to get the word out, talk to people you know. All of that is helpful to us in many ways. We are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, and we are on Snapchat, and that will be growing in the days ahead as well to expand the reach and get the word out faster in the days and the weeks ahead. So that's where we're going. That's where we're headed. And be sure to check out the website, www.themoriahchannel.com. That is eventually where the live stream will live 24/7. And we will show all of the past programming there, and anything more that we produce, which we will produce and or get the rights to if we in time can do that. That's all down the line, and as we continue to expand and grow. But again, your support has helped us tremendously, and your encouragement has been a blessing and a help in doing this project, pushing this company forward. So may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you on this weekend. And join us back here on Monday, the same time, same place, same channel.